We just need to do one.
Yeah, so.
Do we have that?
Timmy, how are you? All right, good evening, everybody. It is Thursday, August 17th, 2023, 5:15 p.m. Time for the special meeting of the Wenatchee City Council. We always like special meetings. As always, we always start with a pledge to our flag. So I think Councilmember Hornby, would you lead us today?
I would. Please stand. Ready?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, it's been the first time since I actually had to do math, so we need 4 for a quorum. So I see Councilmember Poyer is here, Councilmember Hornby is here, Councilmember Kulas is here. Councilmember Huffaker, are you with us via the phone? Please say yes.
He's there.
So where do I see him? I need to know that he's here and present and can acknowledge us so that.
He's on the conference line, the phone for audio.
So how do we get him on the audio?
Get him on the audio, Tim. Can you call the conference line, please?
Yeah, I'm gonna wait until I hear, I'm Keith and I can hear you and participate. I can always do it the old-fashioned way and call him on my cell phone and drop the microphone. We've done that a few times.
Welcome to Meeting Center. Please enter your access code followed by pound.
Access code.
Somebody doing that?
Invalid access code. Please re-enter your access code followed by pound. You are about to join the conference.
All right, let's try, a couple of beeps. All right, Keith, are you with us?
I am here.
Oh, thank God. That gets us to 4. All right, so we do have a quorum for tonight's meeting. So first we will start with citizen comment. This would be a time that any member of the audience can come up and address the city council that's on tonight's agenda or not on tonight's agenda. So we give you 3 minutes. Ask for your name and address for the record. Seeing no takers, we will then move on to our consent items. And just for tonight's meeting, just so you all know, we will have some action items and then we'll go to a little bit more informal part of a work session. So we're doing both tonight. So our first item on our agenda would be approval of the consent items, which includes this evening's agendas, vouchers, and our minutes from our previous meetings. I'd entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion to approve consent items, a motion to approve agenda vouchers and minutes from previous meetings.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Hornby, second by Councilmember Kulas to adopt the consent items, which includes this evening's agenda, vouchers, and our minutes from previous meetings. Any discussion?
Do we need to amend the agenda to add the mayor?
We'll add it in the mayor later on. Yeah.
Good.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right, action items. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 action items. Hi, Carrie. How are you this afternoon? Who did you bring with us? Who's our special guest over there?
This is my daughter, Ava.
Hi, Ava. How are you? Nice to see you. We think your mom's pretty special.
Aww. She's gonna be shy. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I have before you a resolution to appoint members to our first salary commission as authorized in Wenatchee City Code 1.62. The motion that's requested is to appoint 3 new members. It would be Lorna Klemansky for position 1, that's a 1-year term. Position 2 would be Daryl Dickinson, and that is a 2-year term. Position 3 would be Craig Larson for a 3-year term.
So Craig Larson's known to me as a former council member and works at the port. Lorna's retired
Yes,
PUD.
Lorna is the retired PUD HR director. She is
Okay.
also was HR director for the city of Bellingham, so a long spanning career in strategic HR management.
And Daryl Dickinson.
Daryl Dickinson is the former interim executive director for the Wenatchee Valley College, a 35-year executive HR consultant.
Excellent.
So we've got a good packed group of experienced individuals to serve.
Excellent. Sounds like a great team.
Your Honor, I actually may have a conflict of interest because Daryl Dickinson and I are good friends.
Yeah, I think for purposes of putting him on a salary commission, Keith, that shouldn't be an issue, right? I got good friends who are council members on other commissions as well, so I don't think that is one that I would think causes a conflict. I'm looking at the city attorney, and she says,
It's not a statutory conflict.
not a statutory conflict. So if you choose to recuse yourself, that's fine. We would still have 3 yes votes, which would still work because we have a quorum. Robert's Rules of Order over
I
here.
just wanted to make that clear.
All right. Thank you, Keith. All right. With that, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I'd make a motion for the city council to approve resolution number 2023-18, confirming the appointments of the initial members to the salary commission, those being Lorna Klemansky, Daryl Dickinson, and Craig Larson.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Kulas, second by Councilmember Hornby, to adopt resolution number 2023-18, confirming the appointments of the initial members of the salary commission, that being Lorna Klemansky, Daryl Dickinson, and Craig Larson. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Carrie. RCO grant, Mr. Erickson.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Dave Erickson, Parks and Recreation Director for the city. This evening, I have actually the next 2 items. First one would be to see if the council would like to accept a grant from the state. Back in March of 2022, the city council authorized us to pursue a grant to help purchase what is called the Bighorn Ridge Project, which is another Chelan Douglas Land Trust partnership project. We've been working with them since 2018 on this. We went through the year-long application process, ranked 3rd overall statewide for acquisition projects. And the match for this project is predominantly being paid for by the land trust. We would have a little bit of money in for closing costs and for cultural resources report. We have to have the acquisition completed by the end of 2026, so we're looking at a couple years out for that to happen. Next year, though, we would be looking to do the cultural resources reporting. With that, I could try to answer any questions you might have. The grant itself is $750,000.
Same song, 34th verse. We've been doing this for so long in terms of land trust purchases the land, we go get a grant from the state gives us the money, we then close from the land trust, and the city ends up owning the property, and the bigger issue then becomes maintenance to some degree. Questions for David?
I think you said it correctly.
Yeah.
I don't have to say it anymore,
Yeah.
but I will. Yeah, the maintenance part is starting to get a little bit, I listened to another presentation today by the Evergreen Bike Alliance, and I'm wondering about all these trails and upkeep and,
Yep.
but I'm good.
Yep. All right, with that, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion for the City Council to accept the State of Washington Recreation Conservation Office Washington Wildlife Recreation Program grant in the amount of $750,000 for the Bighorn Ridge Project 2022-1323 and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Poyer, second by Councilmember Hornby, to accept the State of Washington Recreation Conservation Office Washington Wildlife Recreation Program grant in the amount of $750,000 for the Bighorn Ridge Project, that being project number 22-1323, and authorize the mayor to sign. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, David. And next?
Yeah, so the next one is an interlocal agreement with the state of Washington, different group. This is the Department of Transportation, and so we're requesting the mayor have authorization to sign this agreement. WashDOT was awarded some funding to assist with cleanup activities associated with transient encampments in their rights of way. In 2022, we had a similar agreement with them, and this is helped fund some of the work around the George Sella Bridge, everything from cleaning up graffiti and trash and repairs to the landscaping and things like that. We have a similar agreement before you tonight. It does pay for staffing costs, security costs if we wanted to hire security, equipment, so if we use our equipment down there, any contracted services, and then also supplies. We do clean up graffiti down there virtually every day on the bridge, and that adds up. Let's see. Yeah, not really any changes in this, other than that the work would be completed between September of this year and May of 2025. So the $200,000 that we would get would be spread out over that time period. There's no matching requirements. Basically, all we do is we track our costs, send a bill to WashDOT, and then they reimburse us for it.
So David, how do you find stuff like this? I mean,
This was one that WashDOT actually approached us a couple years ago. And so we worked through the initial kind of steps to try to figure out how it was going to work and everything. And after the first period, it worked great. They were pleased with the results that we had down there. And they actually increased the amount that we were awarded this time. So they're giving us $200,000. Initially, it was $150,000 for the last biennium.
so you're just proving that you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
The city's doing a good job. Thank you. I'm going to make a motion for the city council to approve the interlocal agreement with Washington State Department of Transportation.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Poyer, second by Councilmember Hornby, to approve the interlocal agreement with the Washington State Department of Transportation, authorize the mayor's signature. Any discussion?
Just a comment, it was good to see that in this agreement, they give you the ability to purchase PPE as well as training behind that, so.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
All right, digester number one repair change order and loan agreement. Jessica and Mike, how you guys doing today?
Very good.
Good evening, Jessica Shaw, Deputy Public Works Director, Utilities.
And Mike Hodgson, the wastewater treatment plant supervisor.
So to make this quick, we're just gonna show you like a 2-second video that describes everything that happened.
Should I plug my nose?
Or you can close your eyes.
Okay.
It's delightful.
So this is the sludge overflowing from digester one.
Or the chocolate falls.
Sort of reminds you of Willy Wonka, doesn't it?
Exactly.
This is what happened to our basement that same day. Of course, we were more focused on what was happening outside with all the sludge pouring out of the tank, and so this ended up, we had to take care of that the next day, but this is the other side of the digester where the seal actually failed and sludge was pouring out and running down towards Worthen Street. So this was back in April. And so in the meantime, Mike and the crew have been working really hard to get the 375,000 gallons of sludge out of there and get the tank clean. And we did a drone inspection a couple weeks ago and everything looks good. One of the concerns from the engineers was that perhaps there was some structural damage with all of the sludge erupting out of the tank. Everything looks okay to proceed. And so what we have for you tonight is a proposal to make the repairs as part of our Digester 4 construction project. So we're proposing a change order to that project. And the cost is $391,725.65. And we're proposing to, Ecology has also approved us to amend our loan agreement for the Digester 4 project, so this cost can get wrapped into that low interest loan we have with the state. So what we're proposing again is this change order 6 for almost $400,000 for the repairs, and then for the mayor to sign the amendment to the Department of Ecology loan agreement.
And that loan agreement interest rate was like
1.6%.
1.6.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So the Bad news is we blew a seal. The good news is the contractor's on site working on the other digester. He can go fix this problem while he's there.
Yeah,
Always try to look at the positives.
yes. And they'll start Monday if you guys agree
They
to,
would have started last Monday had we
well,
figured out how to sign a contract, but apparently we needed council approval, so.
that's right, process.
Any questions for Jessica or Mike? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I'd make a motion for City Council to approve change order number 6 to the wastewater treatment plant digester number 4, project number 1810, and authorize the mayor to sign the change order and the amendments to the Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Kulas, second by Councilmember Hornby, to approve change order number 6 to the wastewater treatment plant digester number 4, project number 1810, and authorize the mayor to sign the change order and the amendment to the Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. When do we expect to be sort of normal in operations?
10 years.
No, like when the new digester opens up,
So
then
we'll
the
invite you to the
processing
ribbon
gets
cutting.
better?
Yeah, that'll be next summer, hopefully. So
Okay.
this will,
Second quarter 24.
yeah.
Okay, we got a little,
We got a little ways still,
okay, thank you.
but we're making progress, so.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. All right, so now we're gonna move on to, you know what, let's do one more thing where we're sort of doing stuff. So, we need to appoint a mayor pro tem. Councilmember Kulas and I are gonna be gone for a little bit, and Councilmember Cuevas is gone. He's the current mayor pro tem. So it seemed to me that out of the two people that are standing, there's Mr. Poyer and Mr. Hornby, but at some point, we need to make one of them the mayor pro tem to sign documents while Mark and I are gone. So,
Oh, you won.
you wanna flip
When
or what?
when I point to you, that would mean I didn't win.
Yeah,
don't.
doesn't matter to me. I was the previous, so it should be someone else.
Yeah, Danielle, you don't have any problem with, Councilmember Poyer in terms of him running for mayor?
Can Councilmember Poyer serve as a mayor pro tem?
Yes.
The answer to that question is yes.
Okay.
So, Your Honor, I'd make a motion that we appoint Councilmember Mike Poyer to serve as mayor pro tem until we return, right?
Yeah, 8 AM Monday morning?
Until August 28th, 2023 at 0800.
Second.
We got a motion by Councilmember Kulas and a second by Councilmember Hornby to appoint Mike Poyer as mayor pro tem, beginning tomorrow morning at 8 AM and ending at 08 AM on, I think it's August 28th?
Yeah, I closed that.
Okay. All right, any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right, now we have a work session update. We have two items. The first regarding an update to the convention center. And I see Alyssa is here and some friends from ALSC. And then we've got a presentation regarding our multifamily tax exemption after that from Glenn and Steven. So Alyssa? ALSC, hey guys.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Alyssa Shaver, Facilities Manager for the city. With me, I have Troy Bishop and Jacob Simonson. Sorry about that.
You're good.
And we're here to give you an update on the convention center expansion and renovation. The last time we were here was in January. You reviewed the schematic design and approved 18,000 square foot of an expansion to the existing convention center, plus an additional alternate for 7,000 square foot renovation to the Fuji Gala rooms in the existing center. I'm gonna turn it over to my friends at ALSC, and they are gonna go through where we're at today.
Excellent, thanks Alyssa.
We appreciate you not calling us ALCS.
I'm sorry.
No, you didn't.
I've done that in the
No, you
past.
did good.
too.
I'm just saying that. Anyway, very, very happy to be here tonight. we just, again, to remind everyone, the goals of this project, the design principles of making sure this facility is as vibrant as what's going on in downtown Wenatchee. It's going to be the showcase of the region. We really feel like when there's going to be an event, our new design's really going to put this on display for anybody going down Wenatchee Avenue and being in the downtown. We want this facility to be very magnetic, so attracting both existing and new event business. A rekindled vibrancy post-COVID as far as getting events here in the conventioning world. Highly functional, efficient, flexible, and very intuitive with wayfinding. Having the convention center down the slope of the existing courtyard is not as intuitive as and we're going to be fixing that with this project. Very identifiable, both a clear sense of arrival, both from down on Columbia Avenue and up on Wenatchee Avenue, and so we think that this design is serving that well, and a high-performance building to maximize revenues and minimize expenses. This is just an aerial view, so if you're in a helicopter like I was at Flight Days last month, looking down on this, we really think pulling the convention center.
There it is.
Oh, there it is. Pulling the convention center to the south and engaging the fountain has really been a really cool piece. We think the fountain and the new expansion is going to have a great dynamic. Also raising all the vibrancy of the plaza up to the level of the street, and then really having this extended awning for small gatherings, but also just spill out. So when everybody comes to this region for a convention, you're utilizing the great weather that you have here. We're very fortunate to have a civil and landscape firm here in Wenatchee, SCJ Alliance. They've been going out to the fountain almost daily to make sure that we're weaving this new project in with that existing. And so this is really just showing how that entire plaza is going to be reinvigorated with this project. And we'll leave this document so you can look at this a little bit further. We don't expect you to read all the things here, but so this is really just that intuitive wayfinding we're talking about. This kind of lit beacon draws you right to the front door, and this curtain wall kind of parallel to the street. You're going to see any sort of event. You're going to know it's a place to see and be seen. And also just, I think there's a scale of this 1.5 story entry that just is consistent with the rest of the fabric of downtown. And again, its presence at night, knowing that if there's an event, the lights will be on and it'll really showcase any sort of convention going on. This is just inside that main breakout space. You can see it kind of interacting very well with the PAC and the new breakout spaces. So this really will become, I think, your civic living room after the renovation is completed. This kind of shows the flexibility of the breakout spaces with all the operable walls. And then within that space, that breaks down into 3 different rooms. So just giving a lot of variation to what you can offer for someone coming to a convention here. We've been very inspired by place. We love this gorge through here, and you know, we dork out a lot talking about the Missoula floods and how this landscape even got here. And so we're just looking at a lot of materiality and complexion of this facility being inspired by the Wenatchee Valley. And you can just start to see that when you have a large event, you can open all these doors, and this can become a registration space, or this can become a place for a very large informal gathering, or again, broken down into smaller convention spaces. Just another view of that. And then within those breakout spaces.
So I'll kind of walk through updates on the plan. There's been minor refinements from schematic design. One of those being this unfinished storage space in the basement. We got an extra 4,200 square feet for a small amount. Made it pretty efficient. So this is on the lower level next to the PAC. We're adding restrooms, which will bring the facility up to code as far as what plumbing fixtures are needed. And just off of the storage space is now a sort of covered outdoor area that can be used for storage, and it is all kind of fenced in so that it won't won't attract people to hang out in the back there. And then this is the upper level. This shows the 3 different meeting rooms, all as separate with back of house space in the back and pre-function connecting the PAC and the convention center. And this just shows what that could be when all 3 of those rooms are open and all the operable walls are open to the pre-function. It just becomes a very large lobby. One of the alternates that you approved last time we met was the reconfiguration of the Fuji Gala rooms. So on the left here, that is the current configuration of the Fuji Gala. Can break into about 8 rooms, very small rooms. But when they're all open, made for very skinny, not very usable rooms. So on the right here is where we have landed with the convention center staff and Alyssa. Creating 6, about 1,000 square foot room each, so 6 rooms with flexibility to utilize that space. So on the left here, this just shows you can turn them into 2 big rooms, and then on the right, you can open up the walls in the middle and get a similar configuration that you have right now, but could be used as kind of one whole room. And this is the visualization of that Fuji Gala renovation downstairs with the center walls all open and the room operable walls open. So just a nice way to open up that space down there and be really flexible. So now to all the fun stuff. So in schematic design, we're around just over 1,300 square feet, or sorry, 13,000 square feet. Just in the development and refinement of the program, we went up about 1,100 square feet. And then with your approval of the unfinished space, as well as the reconfiguration of Fuji Gala, overall we added about 12,000 square feet to the scope of the project. And then cost estimate. In schematic design, our cost estimate was right around 11,900,000 for the base bid, and then including the Fuji Gala, or sorry, the unfinished space, the 600,000. So that put us at about 12,500. And our most recent set and cost estimate, we were at about 12,600 for the base bid. That's not including the Fuji Gala alternate. And then with the alternate, we were sitting about 2.4 with the last estimate. So a total project cost of $15 million. We have been working through VE efforts to really kind of get this closer down to the 14 million. So these are just some of the efforts that we've been taking and some of the estimated savings. So we've been able to pull out about 150,000 out of the base bid project, and then out of the alternate, we found some really good savings in reusing some of the AV equipment that they currently have, and just refining some of those pieces. So we found roughly about 600,000 in savings just from VE efforts, which puts us at 14.4. And just to jump back to this one, it's important to note that that 15 million includes a pretty hefty design contingency. So we have a 10% design contingency within that price. So we have just over $1 million in design contingency. So we feel like after VE efforts and refining that design contingency, removing that in the final cost estimate, we will be within striking distance of the 14 million for the whole project, including the alternate. And then just quick kind of touch on where we're at with schedule and where this is going. So currently we're about 95% construction documents. We will be doing a 90% set here soon, which will get a cost estimate. So we will have a final construction document set the 2nd of October, and that will include a final cost estimate. And then we will also put in for permit at that time. And then we anticipate going out to bid in January of 24, kind of the mid-January, and have bidding until mid-February, and then we hope to award, notice of award in April and proceed in mid-April, and then construction 12 to 15 months from that April date. So we'll be looking to finish somewhere in the April of 25. Any questions?
In terms of, are we working with some contractors now to help with estimates and get people excited to want to bid? What's the communication been like with potential contractors who'd be willing to do this work?
We've, both Jacob and myself.
Oh, this is coming up too. She's gonna tell us all about it.
We have been getting lots of solicitation about this project already. We have used Absher to look at some of the constructability of our drawings, just to see how that would be to help with the estimation. But we've been seeing a lot more interest. It seems like contractors are starting to get hungry again.
Okay.
So, any other
Yeah,
comments on that?
In my discussions with the local contractors that we deal with, there is quite a bit of interest. The interest in public projects are increasing
Okay.
currently. So, and they think that it's just gonna get better
Okay.
for us.
And we
Good.
are using a third-party cost estimator who's really aware
Okay.
of the market and understanding of it, so.
I have a question that kind of leans toward in the weeds, but
Sure.
accessibility to the lower plaza fountain area. That's, I see steps, but
Correct.
how about ADA? How does that work?
Sure, yeah, we'll go back to that.
We've had lots of discussions about that.
We have too, in its current configuration.
Yes. Yeah.
So two things in the weeds that I want to bring up. There's this kind of interface with the PAC and the convention center that I know there's been kind of a hidey hole down there, that grade is coming up. We're going to lessen that problem in there. As far as to the fountain, we had looked at some extensive ramping to get down to that fountain level, and there was hardly any public space left at the time of that. And so the fountain, as far as accessibility, won't change from what you have today. And I'd like to just hear your comments about that. It was a decision that we made as far as how much are we actually changing all of this site when we came to costs. But I'd like to hear what you have to say about that.
Well, I was just thinking of looking at that beautiful outdoor space, so undercover as well as around the fountain, and for the ability of the convention center to offer that up to clients as social space, basically,
Yeah.
in using both of those. And that's kind of what I was,
Well, and underneath the awning, that's all accessible. You're accessible from the street to the facility through that entire plaza, but was actually descending down to be right in front of that fountain. That's still not ADA accessible.
And there's, on the sidewalks on the other side, there's not ADA accessible on the sidewalks.
No, as you
over by
go
the-
down, you're actually below the fountain by the
Got it,
time you
okay.
can get up to it. So it's
Yeah.
stairs to either get down to it or to get up to it.
Got it. Any other questions? I know if Brad was here, we'd probably talk about money. Laura, I guess you're gonna be Brad for a minute.
I do have a presentation on the finances if the council's ready to discuss that.
You ready to talk money?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. Thanks, Alyssa. Appreciate it.
Mouse. There we go. I mouse with my left hand. This is odd.
There you go.
Yes, so Brad is not available this week, but I did ask him to help me put together a kind of high-level status of where we are. You know, when we talked back in January, he also presented a couple of different scenarios. What happens if we go through another pandemic? What happens if we go through 3 more pandemics? So we're still looking at this at a very conservative level, but I'll kind of walk through this with you all on where we are today. So far, we have used about over $300,000 for the concept design. So that's the stuff that happened last year, coming up with the overall concept, doing the community outreach,
This year, we're working on the design development, so everything that ALSC and Alyssa just presented. A little bit over $1 million of lodging tax was earmarked for that. So those are the funds that we have spent to date. What we're looking at financing is the $14 million. That's kind of the target that we're aiming for in terms of the LTAC revenues and what we're expecting. Staff will begin to work with bond counsel in October 2023 to have the bonds ready by the time that the project is going out to bid. So next I will review our LTAC revenues and sort of what those are looking like. So this is the high level of what we have received in LTAC over the last couple of years. So the average growth is 9.6 per year. Even if you take out 2020 and 2021, since those are really high outliers, those kind of cancel themselves out. So generally we're trending at about that same 9.6, even if you take out those very odd years. I'll go through each of these columns so you don't have to, yeah, I know it's a lot. So what I'll be presenting is our projected revenue, which is in this blue column here, the first one. The LTAC and convention center expenses, that's the column that has everything that we're spending, not just the convention center, but our contract for destination marketing and management, as well as events, all of the stuff that goes out that is currently spent in LTAC. The debt service capacity is how much we have left over after that is all expended. The new debt service is the calculation of what we expect to pay in bonds, our debt payment, and then how much we have remaining. So I'll go through these here column by column. So the projected lodging tax revenue, even though we're expected to actually be closer to 9.6, we're using a overall 3%. We've even zeroed out 2024. The reason we zeroed that out is because the project will be under construction. We anticipate there might be some impact on that with not having generally as many bookings as we might have at the convention center. It won't be 0%, but again, this is in the vein of trying to make sure that we're looking at this as kind of worst case scenarios and seeing where we are. So that's that level there. So we are projecting 3% over the next years after that anomaly year or the 0% year if that were to happen. Our expenses are growing at 4% every year. For 2023, they're much higher because of that $1 million design commitment. So that's for the work that we're spending on the design development that we just went over. So that will reduce the following years because we won't be spending that one-time expense. The other thing that comes off in 2028 is our current debt service payments. So right now we are paying bonds from a previous renovation. We opted not to pay those off early since that money was so cheap. I'm using quotations because we financed that at a much cheaper rate than what we will potentially bond these new ones. And so instead of trying to pay those off early, which was one of the initial strategies, we said, you know what? That money is way cheaper than borrow. So let's go ahead and move all of the funds that we do have towards the new borrowing capacity. Let's see here. I'm just looking at my note. The other thing is we have been paying down the current bonds pretty aggressively. We have our consistent payment, which is 20% of the LTAC revenue, but then we've also always paid extra when there's revenue available. So we're constantly addressing that so that we can pay that off even faster. I anticipate we'll be able to do the same thing for the new debt service. So the difference between those two, what we are expecting in revenue and what we have in expenses, is our capacity for a future debt service payment. So we'll have anywhere from under 1 million to about 1.8 million annually over the next 20 years. So this calculation here is the potential debt service payment for $14 million at the 5.84% borrowing rate. That is what we know as of right now. That could change obviously, but that would be what we would have to pay over the next couple of years to pay down those debt payments. And then lastly, it's what's left over. So even after we do our existing expenses plus the debt service, we still have some lodging tax funds available after those different expenses. Let's see here. So, let me go back to this one. As you can see, we are being pretty conservative in what we're guessing is going to come in on at a lodging tax revenue over the next couple of years. What this also doesn't anticipate is it doesn't include the growth in what we're going to get when the project is finished. So if you guys remember the Hovey report that happened, the market analysis, it says we were losing a lot of revenue because we didn't have certain capacity in certain facilities at the convention center. This project will fix those, and so we anticipate that, yes, we will get some additional revenue. So this has not calculated that in there, so we anticipate that there's still some additional revenue that will come from that as well. So over the next 20 years, the excess lodging tax funds would grow to about $436,000 per year, again, after all is said and done and after we financed everything. And I think that's the end of my slideshow. Yep. So happy to answer any questions to the extent that I can, if there are any.
Council sees this again when?
Sees.
Any of this? Are we gonna, not till we approve contracts? Is this the last time I'll see it? What are we anticipating for the next 4 or 5 months?
Yeah, I anticipate that it probably wouldn't be until the project is ready to go out to bid or ready to award a bid.
Okay.
We're at 75% design, 90% design. I don't anticipate that much is going to change. I've been on some of the calls with the team, and they've really turned over every rock to try to find savings and to try to ask questions about how can we better design this to get the maximum efficiency. So we can definitely bring it back again before that if the council would like to see it. But at this point, we're kind of nearing the end of any further changes. This is kind of what we see the project amounting to cost-wise. I think that one of the questions that we probably need to answer at some point is the alternative component. So maybe that's when we come back so that you guys have some time to think about it and decide whether you'd like to go ahead and do that ad alternate. But other than that,
It seemed like we've committed to the ad alternates, haven't we? I mean, we're sort of in, yeah.
at that time, we said, do we have the authority to move forward and continue to look at this? I think this is the first time you've seen the actual drill down and what it actually looks like. So if we're all good with that, we'll continue on that path. But yeah, I wouldn't.
I guess I have a couple of comments or questions about the, if we're already looking like we're 400 over, are there things we can be doing to the outside of the building to maybe scale that back a bit? I mean, I'm looking at more, we want function more than a street curb appeal. I mean, yeah, it's nice, but is it really on a convention center, is that really a critical component of it versus the functionality of the inside space?
I would argue they're both equally as important, and I look at this slightly different, Keith, in that, yeah, we had a $14 million number. We're at 14.4. Based on today, it's going to change. Whether it's going to be less, hope it's going to be less, but you don't know for sure. And again, I look at this building here, and we did it the right way. And got it built the way that was best for the community and best for staff. And I think we will look at the convention center in the same way, and we'll be able to make decisions going forward. But I think the commitment we made was to try to do it the way that we talked about it 2 or 3 months ago, and I think we're still plugging away at it, and I think the architects have worked hard on trying to make some savings, but I'd hate to get an 80% building when it's going to be there for the next 40 years.
Thanks. But again, how critical is the outside of the building for a convention center? I mean, I kept hearing phrases like, it's going to draw people in and you'll know that something's going on in there, but how critical is that really for the general public of Wenatchee? What we're trying to do is make sure we get the thing booked, but, that's kind of Linda's function and her staff, and, what they're looking at is the functionality of the inside of the facility, not how it looks from the outside. And I guess that's my only point.
What I'd like
So
to
if we're looking for areas where we can maybe find some additional ways to cut, $400,000, is that a better place to look at it rather than the functionality of inside?
Our last cost estimate was done at the end of design development. We're working through, and we've gone through some significant value engineering efforts. We will have one more round of estimates completed at the end of CDs at 90%. So I would like to revisit this discussion after we get the pricing from the cost estimators in a couple weeks.
And again, I remember meeting with the consultants, and the first thing I said is I want it to look cool from Wenatchee Avenue. I want, when you go down Wenatchee Avenue, I want you to go, wow, that's a cool building, and I want to know more about what that building is. And I think if you start shortchanging that, you're shortchanging the next 30 years of what the convention center looks like. And I would bend over backwards to try to make sure it looked as absolutely special as we can make it look.
And I think something that we heard a lot from the community outreach was that same piece about wanting to know what was happening, making it more inviting. That is also a part of the sales component. We're seeing a trend in when you go to a conference, you're not just in a room from 8 to 4 going from, meeting to meeting. It's really a more immersive experience, whether it's, outside tours or tours in the town. And so it's not, I think having a convention center that's a little bit more flexible and that's a bit more open is really where the market is trending versus the more classroom presentation, 8 to 5 type thing. So I think from a sales perspective, it still would definitely pay off.
Well, I 100% agree with you on the inside. You want the inside to be as you're describing. Again, we're just going to have to agree to disagree that I don't think the outside is going to sell the convention space. Yeah, it's nice if it looks nice downtown, but is it the most critical piece? And if we're 400,000 over and we need to find a place to cut, I think that's the area to look at. That's my opinion.
All right. Anything else? Travis, Mark, Mike? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, architects, for being here, and we'll look forward to the next time we have a discussion. Yep. So, Stephen, I think we're going to take a 5-minute break,
Excellent.
and then you can come up and tell us about the multifamily tax
I
exemption
will do
credit.
that.
Perfect.
timing.
jump back into session here. A point of order for those of us that are listening at home or in the audience. It's been made the attention of the mayor that we cannot do a mayor pro tem in a special meeting. Those have to be done in regular meetings or have an adopted resolution. We didn't have either of those, so the motion to appoint Mike Poyer is considered mute at this point, and so it just never adopted, and I'm available to sign documents and talk to staff over the next 10 days or so, so I will continue to exercise that. All right, multifamily tax exemption, Mr. Neuenschwander.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Great. Well, good evening, Mayor, Council. Again, Stephen Neuenschwander, Planning Manager with the city. Tonight, our topic for this workshop is the multifamily tax exemption. So the first couple of slides are going to be very high level. What is the program? What's the purpose of the program? And then we'll get into some more detail. We're fortunate to have Erin Fonville from the Chelan County Assessor Office, and she's going to help. The document I just provided to you is financial information that she's going to go over about the tax shift with the exemption. So really to begin with, again, just a very high level, the multifamily tax exemption is authorized through RCW 8414, and it really has some very specific purposes. One is to encourage increased residential opportunities, and that does include affordable housing. It's not the end-all be-all, doesn't require it, but it is included as a purpose. It's to stimulate the construction of new multifamily housing units and also to stimulate the rehabilitation of existing vacant or underutilized buildings. And so as we apply the multifamily tax exemption, there's some key components. So new construction has to be providing at least 4 new multifamily units. Rehabilitation of existing vacant structures has to increase that multifamily unit and bring the structures that are, let's say, out of compliance with building codes, brings them up to or closer to compliance with those building codes. The units can be for sale, they can be for rent, and then they also have to be located within our designated residential target area. Currently, we offer the 8-year exemption, and so that is within that target area. Any project providing a minimum of 4 units can apply for this program and receive that exemption for 8 years once the project is complete. We also offer the 12-year exemption, and that requires a minimum of 20% of the units be provided at an affordable rate to those of low income at less than 80% or up to moderate income at 115% of the area median income. So again, we offer that. A couple of years ago, the legislature also adopted a 20-year exemption, and this one is complicated at best, but at least 25% of the units are built by or sold to a nonprofit or a local jurisdiction for permanent affordable ownership to those households at 80% area median income. So we haven't adopted that into our program, and we can discuss later as we look at options. Some key terms as we talk about the MFTE program. Affordable housing is defined as a monthly housing cost, including utilities, but it does exempt out telephones, not to exceed 30% of that household monthly income. Multifamily, again, 4 or more dwelling units, and then low income is at 80% of that area median income, and then moderate income is up to 115% of that area median income. So how does the exemption work? So as projects are being proposed, they would work with the city in providing us either a building permit and then an application to be included in the program. We have a standard contract that we enter into that is a commitment of the developer within 3 years to complete the project. And once the project has been completed, then they receive their certificate of occupancy for the structure, then they can apply for their final certificate of exemption, which is a demonstration that they have complied with the terms of the contract. And then once that's been signed by the mayor and recorded, then that goes to the assessor's office, and then the following tax year they go into that exemption program. I think there's some confusion with the program. It's not a tax abatement. The tax just simply doesn't go away. Those the value of the projects are still assessed. The developer just simply does not pay the taxes on the new residential units. So if they have non-residential components like a pool house or a meeting space, that would be taxed. Or if they integrate commercial space into a multifamily project, that would be taxed. But the new residential units, they are exempted from paying that tax. Again, that tax doesn't go away. It's not simply abated. It's shifted to everybody else in the city. And that's why Erin is here, and so I'm going to introduce Erin or ask her to come up. And she's done some great research for us about the impact financially of the multifamily tax program up to this point, where that's going in the future, and most importantly, I think, what does that mean? How much revenue has been shifted? What does that mean to individual property owners in the city? So I'm going to turn the time over to Erin. I'm going to go sit down, and then I'll be back to finish up.
All right. Hi, Erin.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm good. I've been crunching numbers.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
So Stephen asked me to kind of give you guys a picture of what the multifamily tax exemption has been doing on a tax base. And as he mentioned, these projects, only the land is taxable and any of the commercial or non-residential components. So what you guys were handed out is just kind of some information from our office of how we track these. And you can see the old two projects. There used to be the poolside apartments and the Deaconess apartments that have since come off. When you're looking at these projects, when you see year end is when they go on the assessment roll, and then year out is when we take them out. So they're on the assessment rolls for 8 years. And it's kind of one of those things that we have to do by hand. Our appraisal software doesn't allow us to just put a code on these. We actually have to go in and flat value the segments that are residential in our appraisal software. So if you look at, and the ones in italics, those are estimated values because we haven't either picked up full construction values on those yet, or they don't have the market adjustment because these are the ones that are still pending. These ones I estimate will probably come on in 25 or 26 taxes. And as Stephen mentioned, when you sign your final certificate, that's when then it goes on for the year afterwards. So there was some confusion with some of the developers. Every time they got their tax bill, I got a call saying, hey, wait a minute, why am I not getting my exemption? So when you look at the second sheet, you can see in the 3-year time period what the assessed values of the multifamily exemption has. So in 21 and 22 tax years, we shifted 13.5 million onto all of the taxpayers in tax code area 802, which is
13,500,000 of valuation.
of assessed values,
Yes, thank
correct.
you.
Which that equals about 141,000 in taxes that were shifted for 21 and 132 for 22. So all total in the past 3 tax years, 21, 22, and 23, about $600,000 worth of tax revenue has been shifted out to the taxpayers. So, and then because that doesn't paint the full picture, because there's also the exemption of the historical exemptions as well, that actually gets shifted as well. So I went ahead and included that, even though we're not talking about that tonight. But you can see on this sheet, just the multifamily exemption alone, with my projections for 24 and for 25, and really next year, your assessed value shift is gonna stay the same as it was this year. It's the one in 25, because Deer Haven will be coming on the assessment rolls, and that's a $23.9 million project that now won't be taxable. So when you look at that, by the end of 25, this program has shifted $1.6 million in tax dollars onto the citizens of Wenatchee. When you add in the historical exemption, that brings it almost to $1.9 million. And I know you kind of think about assessed values, and you probably think, well, how much does that cost per household in Wenatchee? Well, with assessed values and property taxes, you can't just go, well, we have 12,500 taxable properties and divide that number by that. So I figured it out by a $400,000 home. And in 21, a $400,000 home paid about $12 more in their taxes to cover this tax shift. Last year it was $9.50. This year it went all the way up to $87. But next year, depending on the budget, the assessed value, I figured about $15 and then about $40 in 2025. So in the projections, I used the budget for the budget on there was a 1% increase, which is your, by law, what you can do. And then I just used a projection of 6% for the assessed values as well. So this just kind of gives you an idea. The one problem that I didn't even realize it until I ran these numbers today is the Wenatchee Valley Fire District for this year decided to take their statutory max levy rate of $1.50. So instead of being budget-based for their levy rate, they were rate-based. So actually, because of these two exemptions, the historical and the multifamily, the fire district lost $67,000 in revenue. Now that'll get shifted back next year. They won't, because they're at 150, and then they'll go back to whatever their budget is. And how your levy rate works is it's whatever the taxing district's budget is, divided by what the assessed value is for that taxing district times 1,000. So, that's all I have. Oh, we went there.
So on your one scenario, 400,000 assessed value of a home,
Yeah,
that's where you came up with $12.950. Yeah,
right. So that's how
Okay.
much of their taxes,
Correct.
taxes that they're paying more that goes towards the exemptions that the property owners are getting. So,
for the city to try to get affordable housing.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the key thing to
Well, I
remember.
think that's, when we started, it was to get housing.
To get housing.
Not affordable.
Not
Thank
affordable
you.
housing.
Okay.
Right.
To get multifamily housing units built.
Yeah.
Got it.
When we started it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
Thank
key
you.
thing to think about it
That's
is
the
with
80.
any exemption, it always equals a tax shift in a way.
Yeah.
Now, Leavenworth is looking at possibly doing it just as a loss of revenue.
Right.
But then all your taxing districts are affected by that versus having it shifted out to your property owners instead.
Great.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember the goal when we started was we just wanted housing units built, and I think we've accomplished that in terms of, I don't know how many units we've had built in the 11 years I've been mayor, but there's a lot of units. Now,
Yeah.
we still gotta stop and say, does it still make sense, and is it still the right thing, and do we still allow the next development to continue to do that, which I think Stephen will talk about in a minute, but it was really just to get stuff built, and I think we've accomplished it. But I think when you look across the river and you look into Douglas County, you know, they don't have one, and they've built plenty of apartments over there, and East Wenatchee just put one in, I think, but prior to that, and although I don't know how many multifamilies actually built inside the city limits, but I think some have, so, yeah, I think it's a policy issue that we all have to figure out. I appreciate Aaron giving me the math as to exactly how much it is, because it is a shift, right? And I pay a few more dollars in property taxes in my home to try to make the community better by getting housing units built, but that's, again, that's a policy issue. We knew it when we did it, now we just gotta decide whether that policy is still something we're interested in having, so. Back to you, Stephen.
Great, thank you, Aaron. So that's correct. So, you know, in looking at the MFTE program, generally that 8-year program is really geared to energizing the housing market and providing that initial exemption for that period of time. So we have a number of projects that are receiving the exemption. We have some that are coming on the tax rolls. Aaron mentioned Deer Haven. We have Cascade Properties. That's a 4 or 5 unit townhome under contract, and then working towards that final exemption are the DJML on Springwater. It's a 4 unit townhome, and then the 1105 apartments, which we talked about a month or so ago, the 84 units. They're getting close. And then we have a few still out there, and then we have actually 2 applications that we've received for the Sagecrest apartments on Maple Street. So both 8-year exemptions. Those applications, I think the first one is 60 units, and the second, Sagecrest 2, is 94 units. So those will be coming to you here shortly. Just geographically, kind of showing where our current applications are. Most of them are at 5th Street and north. We have only the 1105 apartments really south of 5th Street. So that's the kind of the geographic distribution of where our projects are being, that are in the program or have applied to be in the program. So really, I think what the council has asked community development staff to do is to kind of think about this and some of our conversations, and provide you with some potential options, and really listen to what your direction. Of course, the first option is retain the status quo, keep the program as it is, the 8-year and the 12-year. At this point, we're not getting 12-year multifamily tax exemption applications, which means all the projects are really 8-year exemptions. The council has expressed an interest of us looking at eliminating the 8-year program altogether and simply retaining the 12-year, which would then, we would get multifamily units, but with that would come the minimum 20% affordable units. We could also look at adding an affordable housing requirement to the 8-year program. So East Wenatchee, as an example, they just adopted the multifamily tax program, and they require, with their 8-year exemption, 20% affordable housing requirement. And then if you choose their 12-year program, then 30% of the units are required to be affordable. So that's well within our rights as a jurisdiction to add that affordability requirement to both the 8 and the 12 at those varying percentages. Another option that staff has looked at is potentially adjusting the target area. So right now, on this map, so the orange line, which goes out to Easy Street on the highway, and then up to Western, and then jogs down to Guerin Circle. So that is our current boundary. So within that, any multifamily project can apply for either the 8 or the 12-year program. Something that we have looked at is potentially adjusting that target area and maybe focusing the 8-year program into areas that are not being focused for affordable or for housing, for multifamily housing, and that's particularly our South Wenatchee area. When you look back at that the map of the geographic distribution of our projects in the program, again, most of them are north of 5th Street. So we're really not getting much in South Wenatchee. We could look at an option of targeting the 8-year program in South Wenatchee area to encourage and stimulate multifamily construction there. That might, you could do a variety of things within that, right? You could target that area and say, okay, in this geographic area, you can do the 8-year and the 12-year. Everything outside of that target area, let's say you could only do the 12-year program or 8-year with an affordable housing component. So we have some latitude, we have some options there of how we could move forward. Again, looking at the community and the conversations multifamily tax exemption program is important to our community. It's stimulated a lot of growth over the previous years. And it becomes, I think, also even more important as we look to the future is the Growth Management Act updates that have come down to us. We're required now to look at impediments to affordable housing. What in our zoning code, in our development regulations, might be an impediment to affordable housing being built in our community. And then what options or programs or alternatives do we have that can encourage that to happen? And as staff, we see that multifamily tax exemption as one of those key components. It's really our only affordable housing opportunity through development regulations. So we don't have any inclusionary zoning requirements. So if a project comes in, we don't require a certain number of the units be affordable. We don't have those kinds of programs that other jurisdictions might in our toolbox. And so again, as we look forward, I think staff would just want to remind the council that maybe getting rid of the MFTE altogether might not be the best option, because that takes out one of our tools in that toolbox of providing affordable housing. So that's really what I have prepared tonight. I'm happy to answer questions that you have about the program, talk about the options. I'm sure there are other options that you can bring to us that we can research. We can move as quickly as you'd like us to. If you want to see changes soon, we can allocate the staff time to do that. I have a draft already of some potential changes to the multifamily tax exemption program. So we could have something back to you in a month or two for you to look at.
I agree with the mayor that when we started this, our sole goal, and at the same time we did it, we also expanded the target area out to Western.
Correct.
And that. And it seems to me that we've accomplished it, and it's time to make a change. And remember, we did hear, just last month, that the apartment folks are giving rents away to get, so obviously.
We got them built.
We got them built. Yeah. And it would be, honestly, it'd be easy for me to say, get rid of the 8-year altogether. I mean, I could say that. Seeing the shift that, to other property owners, as well as the loss of revenue to the fire district or the fire department, is concerning. Although it's something that we've talked about, Our Valley, Our Future, a lot of that stuff is, the jurisdictions should have some uniformity across boundaries. And I don't see an issue with what the city of East Wenatchee's done with going with the 20% at 8 years and 30% at 12, and that's the way it is. So you still have that tax exemption, but you do need to provide those affordable, those below market rate housing options.
When did East Wenatchee, they just put this in?
They just adopted February of this year. I think it went into March.
They got it already? Signed up for it?
I don't know. I haven't checked with their community development director, but I do know that they do have interest. I mean, they wouldn't have adopted it if there wasn't interest. I do know that one of their purposes behind this is, if projects are or if property is annexed, right? The county doesn't have the ability to offer this program. The city does. So that would be an incentive for properties to be annexed into the city of East Wenatchee so that they can use these tax exemption programs. Of course, the same would apply here.
Can I ask on the target area, if we lessen the target, well, the city's one taxing district, right? So even with building there, we're not going to be shifting to just people there. It's
Yeah, citywide. Yeah.
Yep.
So if you did a target area and just left it with the 8-year sort of freebie, right? Because we want apartments built in, pick the target area. And we said, okay, we'll give you the 8-year free, but you have to build in these certain target areas. The rest of the place has to be if you're gonna do the 8, then you gotta give us the 20%, if you're gonna do the 12, the 30. That still gives us the ability on these target areas to get some multifamily housing units built, which I think from a policy standpoint probably does make some sense. The issue is how do you define the target area? And so I think that's something that I think Stephen would like some guidance on if that's something we're interested in. And I would say secondly, I think if we find anecdotally next year or the year after that we have some developers that are gonna not do the deal because we've gotten rid of the 8-year. I think you guys would like to know that and say, hey, has something changed and do we want to bring it back? I think it's pretty easy for us to sort of adopt, change, right? Lots of things that we could do. And so it would seem, I would, if I was doing this, if we're making changes, I'd probably make them effective January 1st for a clean cut for you guys and just figure out whether we follow East Wenatchee's model and leave it the same, follow East Wenatchee's model, or find a target area if you want Stephen and his team to sort of think about target areas.
Yeah, great, thank you, Mayor. So on the screen, so the orange areas, so this is the low to moderate income tracts and block groups that we use for the Community Development Block Grant Program. You know, so those are areas that have at least, I believe, 50% of the population are at the low to moderate income levels. And so one of our first thoughts is, you know, we're not getting a lot of housing in those areas. And if, you know, if the 8-year program were available, a target area might be in some of these lower income areas to, again, incentivize. I think I agree with you, Mayor. The program's been very successful, but it's been very successful north of Fifth Street.
Yep.
You know, it'd be
Part
nice
of that is also because that's where vacant land is.
That's where the vacant land was.
So there's two components to that. Yeah.
There's some components there. You know, when Makers was here, I think I've said this before, when Makers was here working on our housing code update back in 2017, 18, and 19, you know, they felt that the North Wenatchee Business District and portions of the South Wenatchee Business District actually had the most potential to provide housing, proximity to transit, transportation, services, grocery stores, very generous setbacks, lot coverage, height, you know, has a lot of opportunity, no density, right? I mean, so there are a lot of opportunities in our commercial areas that could benefit, you know, if we provided a tax exemption or a targeted tax exemption. So there are a lot of options. Again, we're happy to explore them and come back. You know, these.
Stephen, on this map, what's the yellow line?
The yellow line, that's the generally our community development block grant boundary, where we are targeting projects.
But the shaded area is the low to moderate income.
Yep.
So would we be asking too much for you to bring us two different ordinances to look at? One that sort of, that council could choose to do nothing and will stay, one that sort of mirrors the East Wenatchee one, and then one that, you know, either a combination where you mirrors East Wenatchee and has the targeted area. And I would let staff sort of think about what the targeted area should look like. You guys know more about where those are, other than simpler lines are better for me than more complicated lines. So major thoroughfares and those sorts of things.
Sure.
Doesn't have to be perfect to these things, but something that
makes sense.
Makes sense from someone who looks at it, and then they can sort of argue over which one of those they think is the best option for our community.
So I have a really dumb question. Do we have to stick to the 20 and 30%? Is that flexible?
That's flexible.
Okay.
Yep. So the only non-flexible component to that would be for the 12-year program. You could not go less than 20%.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's a hard standard in the statute.
Sure. Okay.
You could go up, but not below 20.
Okay, so bring
I
us
have a quick question. Just for clarification, I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but in the time that we've done this, other than the company that did it by mistake, we've had nobody take us up on the 12-year that would provide the 20% of low-income housing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And there could be two reasons for that. One is the 8 year is so easy to get that as I think Mr. Eider figured out, the extra 4 years and the percentages, this is like, that didn't work. That doesn't mean that once we take the 8 away, if we do, that some people may not start looking and say, okay, now I gotta provide, and they'll run the internal math and figure out. I don't know whether we'll get any or not, but it's at least possible that we could. But I think the issue gets to.
Well, I think
Yeah.
when he came to us, he was indicating that it just couldn't pencil out for him to do that. He was in real risk of losing money on the building overall if he did that. So I'm kind of thinking that we need a couple options. I would love to see somebody take us up on a 820 and a 1230 like East Wenatchee has done. I think that should be an option that we get. I think eliminating the program completely ought to be an option that we get. I'm not sure about the targeted area, how critical that is, but that's kind of my feeling on it right now is, as you stated, Mayor, we have been very successful in getting a lot of apartments built, and that's actually caused growing pains in other areas when it comes to getting traffic through town.
All right. Did you get some marching orders?
Got it.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you very much.
I don't have anything to add on mayor's report. Council, you have anything to add for the good of the order?
Nope.
Look at my calendar quickly to see if anything. Councilmember Kulas and I were at Richard Durock's retirement yesterday. I did a ribbon cutting for the Wenatchee Wild, did their grand opening yesterday as well. And we did, and I don't think Alyssa's still here, but we did get a tour of Pinnacle's Prep's new update that was technically a city update, and again, remarkable work by Pinnacle's Prep, and then Alyssa did a great job, and that building just looks amazing. So if you get a chance to peek into that, it looks amazing. And of course, the highlight of my week was a meeting with Jim Snyder at 4 o'clock on Monday, but I wouldn't say that publicly. Someone might say something about that, so. All right, anything else for the good of the order? All right, September 14th.